All right, looks like we are live and it is indeed time to start. So, as people start hopping on to Zoom here, and also for all of you who are starting to stream this live on YouTube, a big warm welcome from all of us here to our Tuesday Talks. It is exciting to see how Tuesday Talks has really um, become bigger and bigger over the weeks, and we're delighted to be here with you today. Tuesday Talks에 오신 것을 환영합니다. 바쁘신 중에 오늘 우리와 함께 해주셔서 감사합니다. 저는 Initial View 대표하는 김정록입니다. Um, I'm here with Initial View, representing Initial View. My name is Jung Rock, and I am delighted to be here with you with my colleagues from Macalester College, from Swarthmore College, Vassar College, and Wellesley College, here to talk about something very important and near and dear to my heart, which is about close relationships and how it is indeed the key to success, not only in college, but also beyond. Just a quick reminder, as I always do every week, that one of the wonderful things about doing this live and you watching us in real time is that you get to ask your questions and actually have them answered. And we will try our very best to have them all answered. But as you start thinking about your questions, please don't wait until the very end, but go ahead and start using the chat boxes, whether you're on YouTube or on Zoom. We will receive them all and start typing in your questions, and we will have time at the very end to address as many as we can. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Sarah from Macalester to first talk about why you should choose a liberal arts college, and then we'll go into every university giving a brief presentation. Thanks, Sarah.
Great. Thank you so much, Jung Rock, and thank you all who are watching this evening. And thank you to Initial View for hosting these fantastic Tuesday Talks. I think we all are greatly enjoying this opportunity to talk with you about these important topics. I'm going to give you kind of just a very brief overview of the liberal arts. I could go on and on, but I'll try to keep this quite short. So our four institutions represent some of the top liberal arts and sciences colleges, and each of our schools are unique, and we'll give you a little taste of that in a bit, but we do share many similarities. In general, liberal arts and sciences colleges specialize in offering a liberal arts curriculum. The liberal arts and science curriculum is actually one of the oldest types of curriculums at the collegiate level in the United States. And that goes all the way back to Harvard's undergraduate program. And the liberal arts is a philosophy of education that's really built around offering a well-rounded, broad-based curriculum. It's the idea that students, to be best prepared for success, need to be well versed in a wide range of disciplines and being able to think critically across lots of different fields, not just their own field of specialization. And so there are universities as well as small colleges that offer a liberal arts curriculum, but universities are a bit different in that they tend to be larger, and they might have a single division or an undergraduate college that's the College of Arts and Sciences, but it's one of many different schools, including potentially some graduate programs as well. Liberal arts and sciences colleges, like the ones that are presenting today, are specialists. We focus all of our resources, all of our expertise on providing the best 4-year undergraduate experience possible. And if we could go to the next slide. Some of the things that particularly make our type of schools unique, one is that we intentionally choose to be small communities. Usually a small liberal arts and sciences college in the United States is no more than 3,000 undergraduate students. The small size means lots of personalized connections, support, and attention. A common phrase you'll hear is that our students are individuals. They're not just a nameless number in the thousands. This also means that the ability to have those close connections that we'll talk about is just incredibly, it's really at the heart of what we do. And so this small size also means that our classes tend to be very small. Even our introductory level classes are discussion based. You typically are not going to find a 300-person lecture survey course at a small liberal arts and sciences college. In addition, our faculty are all top researchers, they're publishing, they're preeminent in their fields, but the difference is they've chosen to be at a small liberal arts and sciences college like ours because they also value teaching. They value teaching and especially working with undergraduate students. And so they want to interact with you early on, and as well as invite you to working on their research. You don't have to wait usually if you want to research with faculty. And then finally, our communities are special in that we're also uniquely and intentionally residential. So that means that we all expect our students to live on campus. In some cases, for the first 2 years, some schools may require students to live on campus for all 4 years. And we do this because our philosophy of education is that what you're learning in the classroom is very important, but it's equally important the skills and kind of the ability to connect with people that you gain outside of the classroom, in living and learning together and connecting with each other in residence halls is a key part of that. So if you have more questions about the liberal arts in general, we're more than happy to answer those at the end. But for now, I'm going to turn it over and we're each going to give you a little taste of what makes our schools a bit unique, even though we share a lot of these same qualities. So looks like I am up first, which is odd being an M. I'm almost never going first in a presentation. So again, I represent Macalester College, where I have about 2,100 students, and we're kind of unique amongst this group of schools because we are not on the East Coast. We're actually in the upper Midwest in St. Paul, Minnesota. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on 3 key things that I think are important at Macalester. One is that of our 2,100 students, 15% are international students. And that is very much an important part of who we are. Internationalism is particularly important at Macalester. It's one of our core values. And we were actually one of the first colleges in the United States to recognize the importance of recruiting international students to our campus. We've been focusing on this since the late 1940s, and it actually led Macalester to creating one of the first international studies programs of its kind in the United States. And another fun fact, we actually were one of the first schools to fly the United Nations flag as a symbol of this commitment to internationalism. It's been flying since 1950. Another core value is serving society. 96% of our students participate in community service or civic engagement facilitated by our Civic Engagement Center. And they do this because they want to. It's not a requirement. And we really want all students to think about not just how they're going to apply their experience and be successful after graduation getting jobs, but also really challenging to think how they can have a positive impact on their community, their families, or even the world as they pursue their professional careers. And this commitment is actually one of the reasons why Macalester has been ranked #2 in the United States for students who want to change the world. And then finally, our location is also a bit unique. We are actually one of the few top 25 nationally ranked liberal arts and sciences colleges in the US, located in a city We're not, an hour or 2 hours outside in the suburbs. And that means that our students have an incredible opportunity to really take their learning and apply it in the real world. Over 60 classes each year include community-based learning components, so the classes are actually happening out in the city. And students have access to over 200 plus internship sites within 13 kilometers of our campus. And that includes 16 Fortune 500 companies like 3M and Ecolab. Startups were in the state capital, so state government and agencies are also available. And even great undergraduate research programs like the program that's available at the Mayo Clinic. So I'm happy to go into more detail if you have questions at the end, but I'm going to turn it over to my colleague who's going to tell you a little bit more about Swarthmore.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. My name is Yoko and I represent Swarthmore College. So similarly, I'm going to do a very brief introduction to Swarthmore and just talk about a few important things about us. We are located just outside the city of Philadelphia, which is on the east coast of the United States, roughly between New York City and Washington, D.C. We have a gorgeous campus that is also a national arboretum, so a lot of natural beauty surrounding our students. But at the same time, downtown Philadelphia is just a 25-minute train ride away, so very easy access to opportunities for research, internships, world-class museums, performances, and of course, lots of good food as well. Our students come from very different backgrounds from all over the world with different educational paths. So part of what we do to help ease that transition into Swarthmore is actually making the first semester entirely pass-fail, which means that there are no grades that first semester. And our students really have built-in time to figure a lot of things out, right? Like how to be a college student, how to manage your time, how to make friends, right? And how to do all of that from thousands of miles away for our international students particularly. Additionally, we do not publish a GPA all 4 years, and we really encourage our students to focus on learning itself and not grades or competition with each other. And you never really hear students ask each other, hey, what did you get in that class? Or, what's your GPA? A lot of times they really don't know, and we really push that, collaborative environment instead of a competitive one. Swarthmore is also one of the few liberal arts colleges that offer engineering as a program of study. And our 4-year ABET accredited engineering program allows our students to explore all the subfields of engineering before delving into their specialty, all while having still a strong liberal arts background, so our engineers can understand the human condition to be able to solve human problems. And we also have an honors program, which is unique in the US, where students delve very deeply into specific topics in their fields of interest. And it's an experience that emphasizes in-depth and independent learning and culminates with both oral and written exams conducted by external examiners who are experts in the field that have nothing to do with Swarthmore. So usually, researchers from other institutions or just leading experts on these very matters. And the last thing I want to mention about Swarthmore is some partnerships that we have in the area, because it's an area that's very concentrated with colleges and universities. And we are in what we call the Tri-College Consortium with 2 other liberal arts colleges, Haverford and Bryn Mawr. And with them, we pretty much share everything, including all of our classes, our dining halls, facilities, events, and some student groups as well. So our students really can extend both their social and academic lives beyond the campus of Swarthmore and have 2 more campuses to call home. And all you need is your Swarthmore ID. And lastly, we also offer cross-registration with the University of Pennsylvania that allows students to take classes not offered in the Tri-College Consortium. So that wraps up my brief introduction about Swarthmore, and with that, I'll turn it over to my next colleague.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Rochelle Ehrman. I'm an assistant director of admission at Vassar. So I'm going to give you a brief introduction to Vassar College, which is in Poughkeepsie, New York. Poughkeepsie is located about 90 miles north of New York City on the Hudson River. So we are just a couple miles from the river itself. It's a really beautiful area to go to school. And it means that you do have very easy access to New York City. It's about an hour and 45-minute train ride down to Grand Central Station from Poughkeepsie, but it's not a huge draw for students. There isn't a culture of leaving every weekend, of constantly going to the city, because we have such a vibrant community in Poughkeepsie and on our campus. Our campus is 1,000 acres. Half of that is the Vassar Farm and Ecological Preserve, which is a functioning farm that produces fruits and vegetables and produce for our dining facilities. There's also running trails and an ecological preserve and a field station for research. And then the other 500 acres are the main part of campus where you'll go to class, live, and eat. And one of the unique things about Vassar's academics is that we have what's called an open curriculum. There are no core classes at Vassar. We also don't have general education requirements, and we don't really have a distribution requirement. So there are no instructions about, how many of any type of class you have to take. You don't have to fulfill certain requirements in order to start your major. You can come to Vassar, you can start your major right away, or you can decide that you want to try a lot of different things to see what fits and what your ideal major is. And that includes also our fine arts programs. We have art, music, dance, theater, and film. All of those programs are not conservatories. You do not have to submit a portfolio or audition to be a major or a minor. The exception is dance. You cannot major or minor in dance, but you can take dance for academic credit at any level, even if you have never danced before. And we really encourage students to try new things, to try an arts program or to double major or to minor, and really whatever you're interested in to really fulfill that through our programs. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to the next school.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rochelle. My name is Milena Mareva. I am an Associate Director of Admission at Wellesley College. I could talk all day about Wellesley because it's my alma mater, but I will contain myself to the 3 minutes today, and hopefully you could learn about Wellesley by following up on that conversation. So 3 things that are unique about Wellesley. First of all, we are a college that dedicates all of its resources and all of its attention to undergraduate women. So our mission is to educate women who make a difference in the world. And we have been an institution committed to fostering gender balance and leadership development for young women since our very founding, at the time in the 1800s when this was considered really against the norm. So throughout its history, Wellesley has had a deep impact on the world by being a very strong voice for women's rights, for women's right to vote, women's right access to co-education, which in the United States didn't happen until the 1980s. And today, for bridging the gender gap, particularly around fields where women still are severely underrepresented, and around leadership. So Wellesley is known for many trailblazers, women leaders, such as 2 out of the 3 secretaries of state in the United States so far who have been female, Madeleine Albright and Hillary Clinton, the first Korean woman to be appointed ambassador to a foreign country in Ho Lee, and many, many others. So while you will see us represented in political circles and corporate circles and typically male-dominated fields, our philosophy of leadership is one of service, of changing communities in a smaller scale, in a larger scale. So on our campus, students have unparalleled opportunities to engage in leadership. We think that leadership is a skill, and in order to grow as a leader, you need opportunities to practice it. So we structure Wellesley, we structure the institution in a way that gives students access to those leadership opportunities. You will see students running the residence halls. Students are on every major governing board of the institution, working on our financial aid policy, on faculty appointments, on currently with the President's Council around COVID-19 planning. So you will have exposure to leadership opportunities at Wellesley that is unparalleled. And we believe that the strongest agent of change is an educated young woman. So you will see that philosophy represented. On our campus, we are also have a unique location. We are situated on a beautiful 500-acre campus. You see some shots here and the lake behind me. So you have an opportunity to be in a breathtaking setting with gorgeous architecture and resources that are typically available at large research universities, except on our campus, they are solely there for the use of undergraduates. Wellesley is located about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on traffic, or 19 kilometers from downtown Boston. And Boston happens to be the largest college, one of the largest college cities in the world, depending on which metrics you look at. We have over 250,000 college students in the city. So every fourth person you meet there will be a college student. That makes for an extraordinarily vibrant social scene, as well as great access to research opportunities, collaborations with other institutions. In particular, Wellesley has collaborations with 4 other institutions, the Alumni College of Engineering and Vassar College, which focuses on business. Those 2 are in our backyard in the town of Wellesley, as well as MIT located in Cambridge and Brandeis University. So we share some classes with those universities. We share a research program with MIT, as well as a recruitment program with MIT. And the last distinctive aspect of Wellesley that you will not find anywhere is a new model of career advising that we pioneered 4 years ago. And that is designed to utilize the strength of our liberal arts curriculum and allow students to find the best job opportunities, the best career for themselves, combining the skills that they gain through this very diverse curriculum. So students are matched with career advisors from their very first year. They have extraordinary access to internships that the institution creates by connections with employers, by connections made or discovered through our faculty, as well as our alum network. We have the most powerful women's network in the world, and you may recognize Gloria Chu, founder of Initial View, as one of the alums we're very proud of. So the career network and career opportunities that we give our exposure to our students are wonderful. So I'll wrap it up about Wellesley, and then we can jump into our conversation about how relationship building is essential for success in every aspect of the college experience. And we'll start with the admissions process.
Great. Thank you, Milena. So we'll get started talking about these close relationships, in liberal arts colleges like ours. And that really all starts even before college begins, right, in the admissions process. And why do we talk about the importance of relationship building in this admission process? I know that many of you are very nervous about making the right choice, about choosing the right school to attend, even more so now that students can't visit college campuses in the time of the global pandemic. I was also an international student a couple years ago, applying from outside the US, and I couldn't visit any of the colleges that I applied to. I fortunately ended up at a school that was right for me, but I certainly understand the amount of weight that comes with these decisions, right? Especially when you can't have the in-person experience. And I think that's why these connections that you make with colleges are even more important right now, more than ever, right, in this virtual world that we live in, because they can really help inform these decisions that you make. And that's honestly what we do as admissions officers. Our job is really, along with school counselors, help students navigate this very, very confusing and complex admissions process by providing you with information and resources that will hopefully help you make the best decisions during your college search, right? When you're looking for colleges, doing your search, when you're putting together your applications, and even later down the road when you're trying to decide between a few schools on where to attend, right, once you have your offers. And I talk to students a lot about the college that I represent, but I know, for some students it might be a great choice, and for some students it might not be, right? So this process for you students is also really a time to explore all the options available to you and then decide what you like and what's right for you. And part of that might be learning what you don't like and what it's not for you. And that's totally okay as well, right? But all that is to say that this is a very human process. Real people work in admissions, and it's very much relationship driven. And given the time that we're in right now, it's even more crucial to build these relationships and have these connections. And with that, I want to lift up the role of a regional representative. And if you didn't know what that means, it really just means that the admissions officer who serves as liaison between students applying from a specific region and that admissions office, right? So it's someone who, first of all, understands the context of your school environment. It's someone who's an expert in knowing, hey, what is offered here, right? What kind of curriculum, what advising looks like, what kind of extracurriculars are available. Do students commute right along distance to get to this school? So it's really someone who understands your context when it comes to academics. And second of all, it's also your contact point at this admissions office. It's someone who can connect you with current student experiences, academic departments that you're interested in, and also just any other college campus offices and student support services, and someone who can answer any of your questions, right? So you don't have to kind of hunt over the internet for information. This is really the most direct way to get that information. So remember that AOs are your resource, and we also enjoy having those personal connections, right? A lot of us don't get to meet students or talk to students later on when we're reading applications, and this time where we get to talk to students and family is really the part of our job that we enjoy the most. And of course, besides connecting with AOs, there are lots of other ways to connect with colleges as you're going through the admissions process. There is a lot of static resources available just at all times, like the college website, which is honestly where I go when I don't have the answer to a question. A lot of us run admissions blogs. We send a lot of emails to students as well, so that's another way to get curated information from the admissions offices. And of course, there's student-run newspapers and publications, and also just ways to connect with current students. And I always encourage students, right, to talk to current students who attend these institutions that might share your experiences, your identities, your backgrounds, your interests, because honestly, that is the most direct way to learn what life really is like, right, for a student that might look like you or go have your experiences. And of course, many of those in-person opportunities and events are not available right now, like the traditional college fairs or campus visits or admitted student programs in some cases, but there are so many virtual ways to connect. Many of us offer virtual tours and information sessions online. There are Q&As or coffee chats with AOs. There are lots of webinars such as Tuesday Talks. And of course, interviewing is another way of connecting with colleges right now as well, whether that's with an AO, with a current student, with alums, or even a third-party interview like Initial View, which all of us accept, and we love watching these initial view interviews as well. And of course, many of us utilize social media pretty frequently, so feel free to check us out on social media platforms and get information that way. And the last thing I want to mention about relationship building is something called demonstrated interest. So you might have come across that term already. It means letting schools know that you're interested by interacting with their admissions offices, with their students or alums, right? But in the format of doing a visit, doing an interview, or going to their events, talking to one of us, etc. So it's considered in various ways by different schools. So some schools consider it, some schools don't think about it at all when they make admissions decisions. And really the takeaway here is, be mindful of how you approach these connections, right? If you find yourself emailing an AO or a professor a few times a week just to email them, that might not be, a good way to use your time or their time. So find a balance in showing schools that you're interested, but at the same time, make connections that are both helpful and meaningful to you as well, right? So with that, I will turn it over to my next colleague to talk about what that looks like in college, right, with your students and your professors.
So this is where the fun really begins. Once you get to the campuses and you meet your classmates and you have opportunities to get to know them. And those classmates, I can guarantee, especially if you look at our 4 institutions, are going to be extraordinarily diverse. So the diversity that we have is the driver of the learning process. Chances are, even if you come from a very diverse city, the community around you probably shares your socioeconomic status, your religious views, often your political views, your linguistic experience. And once you get to campuses like ours, that's no longer going to be the case. Your classmates will come from different linguistic, geographic, political, socioeconomic, cultural, ethnic backgrounds. You're going to see the world represented on our campuses. So that's something, to me as a student at Wellesley coming from Bulgaria, that was one of the most phenomenal parts of my college experience. First, I was able to approach people and strike friendships with the people around me, because the community and the atmosphere and the culture on our campuses is one of great openness and friendliness and acceptance. So people were actually really excited when they heard that I come from Bulgaria. There were really interesting things that were going on at the time, politically and economically. So my professors would call on me to share some of my experience. So you are part of a community that has the diversity, but also has the acceptance and friendliness, and allows for these incredible conversations to happen in and out of the classroom. And the residential experience, of course, the structure of our campuses helps these conversations. The small classrooms help students share freely their honest beliefs and different perspectives. The fact that you interact with classmates all the time on the campus allows you to form these deep friendships. So I was definitely a better scholar in my field. I actually studied economics and international relations. I definitely got a better understanding of the issues that I was studying because I had classmates who had experienced some of these issues. I had classmates who had lived through apartheid, who had survived ethnic conflict, who had lived as refugees. So I was able to learn about the world from their eyes, not just from the textbooks. And our faculty would really utilize those perspectives as well in the learning process. So one of the ways that you are more successful by building relationships is that you are going to gain greater understanding of issues. And of course, the other way would be that you form this lifelong network of friends who you meet on the campus, you form deep relationships with while you study together. But even after you graduate, you can find those friends, and remain connected to those friends that would span the globe. So throughout your time, they continue to be your inspiration, your support network that cannot be replaced. And it's such an essential part. It has been, I know, as part of my success professionally and personally. And that's what our other alums report. Now, the deep connections are also formed while working on the many student organizations that are available on our campuses. We have vibrant communities that represent many different talents and interests. So you will see political organizations and newspapers and other publications. You're going to see cultural groups, performing arts, all the different parts of the activity spectrum. So you have opportunities in these organizations to collaborate with your peers. And as a first-year student, as a younger student, you have an opportunity to see your role models, right? You older students who are so skilled at helping run student international orientation, or are the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. And so you learn from them by forming these relationships in the student organizations, and of course, building your leadership skills. Now, beyond peer-to-peer relationships, you are going to be friends with your faculty. Again, the small communities that we have, the fact that we entirely focus our resources and attention on undergraduate students means, in very practical terms, that you become friends with your faculty. So by the second week of class, my professors knew me by name. My name is not easy to pronounce. They did their best. I would go and have coffee or lunch with my professors. My French professor invited the entire class at the end of the semester to her house and cooked a 5-course French meal for us. Those faculty are also very famous in their field, which at first you don't realize because they are so approachable. But then you read their article or you read their textbook or you hear their interview on national TV or radio, and you realize these are the people who create knowledge in their fields, but they choose to also teach undergraduates. And every professor, no matter how famous at Wellesley, for example, teaches an introductory class every year. So they have an opportunity to interact with first-year students. So those faculty would be bringing information to you, knowledge to you from the source. My advisor in my international relations major was at the time academic advisor of the UN Security Council. So he would be literally coming from meetings of the UN to our class and sharing whatever could be shared. He also produced the first published history of the UN with the support and help of Wellesley students. So that's the fact that there are no graduate students on our campuses means that the only research assistants for faculty are undergraduate students. So the collaboration with faculty is really the norm, and even first-year students can get really easily involved in research. So the culture of mentorship is something that is distinct about our communities. The concept of office hours was unfamiliar to me before I got to Wellesley, and it was something that I would kind of struggle to explain to my family. They had gone to university in Bulgaria and being part of very large classes, between 500 people and 1,000 people in a lecture hall. And so they never had this easy access to professors, but I highly encourage you to remember to definitely go to office hours once you get to campus. You will see professors posting their office hours on the syllabi, as well as in communication with you. And these are not hours just to go and utilize to get answers to the problem set or related to the material. Certainly you can do that. But these are times to really get to know the faculty and share your interests in the field generally, or how you're transitioning to college. So essentially all of my professors at Wellesley, even if they were in my major or outside of my major, ended up being mentors in some way and advisors in some way. And so it was, those relationships that I formed as an undergraduate that have continued after graduating from Wellesley. 6 years after I graduated, I applied to a graduate program, and 2 of my Wellesley professors provided recommendations on my behalf, which is fairly typical. They would still remember you because you are a friend, and because you are a colleague, and because you have collaborated with them. So that's my a few pieces of a few nuggets on building relationships with faculty. And now we'll go to how our offices and campus resources are supporting you in building relationships.
Great, thank you so much. So yes, everything that has already been talked about, I would just want to echo again. But I think sometimes students are surprised when, especially, they get to a small residential liberal arts and sciences college, that there are even more people and offices on campus that are not necessarily directly connected to your classroom experience. So not necessarily just your professors or your admissions officer. There are professionals who basically their job is to help support you in whatever way you need to make sure that your 4 years at our institutions are a success and that you are getting the most out of that experience, but also, again, setting you up for success after you leave our institutions. So there are several different types of offices that you might interact with. A few are listed on this slide, but I really want to spend my time diving deeply into the International Student Services, or sometimes called International Student Programs departments, because these departments and my colleagues who work in this department, similar for all of our other institutions, they dedicate their lives specifically to supporting international and overseas students. Their sole focus is helping you along the way. And in many cases, these types of relationships, I know certainly on all the different liberal arts campuses I've worked at, it can almost become like a second family, a second set of parents or aunts or uncles, or, it's not uncommon for our international service workers to be invited decades later to weddings of their international students. And so it's really kind of a special bond, and they do so much to help even before you arrive on campus to set you up for success and help you navigate not just the institution, but the city or the town that you might be in, the state, as well as being in the United States. So their services will start even before you arrive on campus. The summer is always such an interesting time because it's this handoff between the admissions counselor or officer that you've developed hopefully a good connection with. I know I've been emailing quite a bit with our enrolling students, but we're kind of now handing you off, our incoming international students off to our colleagues in International Student Services, because in many cases, they're the ones who are helping you with your visa process. If you're a student who needs an F1 visa, they are potentially creating your I-20s. They're answering questions, especially this summer. That relationship is starting even earlier, I think, because there is some uncertainty around the visa process and US consulate offices. And so if anything, our colleagues in International Student Services or International Student Programs are developing those relationships even quicker as they're answering questions and providing support for students navigating that process. They, many cases, will even organize pickups from the airport when you do arrive for move-in day or just in general. So I know at Macalester, they have some of our international student interns. They're in the baggage claim area. So one of the first faces you see as you are, bleary-eyed and jet-lagged and you're waiting for your bag are friendly faces connected with International Student Services. They also help with your transition. Again, not just your transition to the campus, but the transition to the community outside of the college or university that you're attending, as well as US culture in general. Many of our, especially at our small liberal arts colleges, tend to have specific orientations or pre-orientation programs for international students, as well as in some cases, US citizens who have been living overseas as well are often welcome to these programs. And one is a chance to get over your jet lag and but also start building those relationships that we've been talking about with other international students, with different campus partners. Often these orientations include meetings with other campus partners like faculty, health and wellness services, the career services will often do like actual meet and greets specifically with international students during this orientation period. They'll even help with kind of logistical things, like if you are working on campus and need to apply for a social security number, if you need to set up a US bank account, if you need to figure out, do you get a new phone, do you get a new SIM card, what are the different networks, all of that is encompassed, and they're experts in, again, really thinking of everything from a very small scale to the big picture, like what is American humor all about? And what might your future classmates mean when they say a certain phrase, or navigating some of those social elements as well. Many international services also organize different programs like mentor programs, where you might be paired with an upperclassman who is an international student who basically can become an older sibling or a cousin, somebody who has a couple of years under their belt, but they're going to be able to answer your questions, give you insight into different faculty or how things work on campus, as well as potentially host family programs. Even if you're not necessarily living with your host family, in our cases, we actually call them like friend families, because it gives students an opportunity to, again, connect with community members it kind of outside of that academic setting. And so it's also a great way for students, one, to have access to home cooked meals, but our international students really like that program because it allows them to kind of see American life and American family life outside of the residence halls, and kind of feeling that support as well. But even individual meetings, again, large universities will have some form of international student services as well, but the difference is because of a liberal arts college's small size and emphasis on community, the ability to have that one-on-one individual connection very early on is just so much easier. And in some cases, they won't let you escape them. So for example, our international student services, they require that every single new international student meet with them individually to have a mid-semester check-in, as well as an end of semester check-in. And it doesn't have necessarily a set agenda, but it's really just to kind of make sure that you're doing okay. Kind of figure out, is there something that's still confusing? Are you having issues figuring out how do you communicate with your professor if you're a little unsure about that? Is there any way that they can help you connect with different resources? Or if you've got questions about your F1 visa status and when you can start doing an internship or things like that. They also help with administrative things that you may not even think about. Yes, managing your student visa compliance. So making sure that you're staying in good status as you explore different opportunities. They also are going to be the ones helping you navigate often the career practical training or optional practical training, your CPT or OPT, filling out paperwork, helping you kind of connect the dots between the Career Services Center, the internship site, or your first employer, and making sure everything runs smoothly, as well as even filing taxes. If you have a paid internship in the US at one point, or if you're working on campus in a campus job, you need to file federal taxes. And so I know at Macalester, they specifically train tax interns to help you file your taxes. And again, it's that level of high touch individual attention that a smaller community like a liberal arts college is going to be able to provide. I know one of our alums, I was talking with him, and he was saying that he had friends at larger universities in the US contacting him when it was time for them to file their taxes, because our international student services had supported him and trained him so well in how to do that. And then finally, they also handle social interactions as well. Many of our international student services or programs office will also coordinate different types of social events. Maybe it's going to see a theater production, or going to a museum, or having different outings to get to know the area. Macalester, we have a program called a Metrica, which is, again, working on creating close relationships between your peers. And it's designed specifically to pair international students with US domestic students and really learn about how do you have cross-cultural dialogue around different topics and how do you navigate that. And they may just do fun things in their office spaces once a week. So it's really all encompassing. We can go into some of the other offices as well afterwards. You can kind of see on the slide some of the things that they offer, but actually I'm going to turn it over to Rochelle because career services actually kind of ties in nicely with the close connection that you're going to develop with alumni as well.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Yes, so it's not just the people who are on campus. While you're going to make great connections with your classmates, with your professors, with the staff and administrators on campus, we as liberal arts colleges have an incredible global alumni network. There's a saying in the US that it's not always what you know, it's who you know. So knowing people in an industry, meeting alums can really help give you career advice, help you decide what industry you want to go into, finding jobs and internships. So while liberal arts colleges, being smaller, produce a smaller number of alums each year, we really make up for it in the depth of access that you get to the alums and in the enthusiasm that our alumni have to give back to students and to be a part of the programming on campus and to really have that engagement with current students and help them in the way that they were helped when they were at the college. Everything varies a little bit by institution, but most schools have some sort of mentoring platform where you can connect with alumni, something like Handshake, where you can reach out to alumni. There's always LinkedIn, which is a really great resource as well. So you can reach out, email, and our alums are so enthusiastic about working with students that they are willing to connect with a student that they've maybe never met in person, to have that phone call or that email exchange to give you information on themselves and how they broke into their career and what they did while they were at your school to get to where they are. The career development office, or each one, career services, something like that, they all have slightly different names depending on the institution, like Sarah mentioned, are a really great resource and connector on campus. A lot of them start working with students during orientation week. You can go and meet with them and you can talk about, oh, I'm interested potentially in going into, a certain field and what classes should I be taking and what should I be thinking about already. And they'll guide you starting very, very early on. And they will help you with things like resumes and writing cover letters, applications for jobs and internships. But they also will hold bigger events to connect you with alumni on campus. Some events may be something along the lines of like a sophomore connections weekend, which I know a number of colleges have. And those are weekend workshops where the career development office will bring back dozens and dozens of alums to campus from all different industries. And they'll host talks about resumes and cover letters, but they'll also just have panels for different industries. There might be one for medicine or for tech or for law. And in all of those panels, you'll have connection to alumni who will tell you about, what they did while they were on campus, what their major was, what classes they took, how they decided to go into that field and what you can do, but also what clubs they were in and what connections they made. So they'll really give you that advice that you need, and they'll be right there on campus thanks to the Career Services Network to be there to meet you, and you'll really be able to get that strong connection. There are also some, interview consortiums like the Selective Liberal Arts Consortium, which offers employers an opportunity to interview students. And those consortiums allow students to be interviewed by a lot of different industries and different places that are hiring to give you the opportunity to learn more about the jobs and to potentially get a job or an internship from that. Then, it's not just the domestic alumni who participate. It is a global alumni network through, Handshake, through the career services offices. You can really reach out globally. You can meet alumni who live in your country or even in your city or in your town. They will connect you with people who are local to you as well. So you do get that international aspect of it too. It's not just limited to domestic alumni. Some of them may be citizens living abroad, but some of them may be international students who came to your college for 4 years and then went back overseas to work somewhere else. So there is definitely the ability to connect locally and globally with these alumni and get to know them and get the assistance that you need. It is a really in-depth connection that you get. Another really good way to take advantage of alumni is through informational interviews. Some schools offer them also as part of the application process, and these interviews are conducted by alumni locally or, over the phone or Skype or FaceTime or any of those. And it's a really good opportunity to speak to an alum, to learn a little bit more about them, to get that connection in person, but also can serve as an English proficiency tool as part of your application. So it's definitely something to think about. And I know that all of the colleges have that information on their websites. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. And I know that we have a little bit of time left, I hope, for questions.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. You always hear that relationships are really important, but to actually have it broken up like this and explained in detail is really helpful. So we do have time for a few questions. The first question is kind of a little bit very kind of, I think, involves a simple answer in terms of where exactly, which office in particular would someone go to apply for a scholarship, grant, or a loan? Which office on your campus would deal with this?
So, as in most things, it depends. In most cases, you're going to either be talking to someone in the financial aid office, or you're going to be talking to your regional admission officer or an admission counselor, especially if you have questions about potential for merit scholarships. So scholarships that the institution would be awarding based on factors that are not financial. So for example, strong academic performance. Some schools might have specific scholarships for artistic achievement, things like that. Often those questions will probably be handled in the admissions office. If you need to apply for need-based aid, so the cost of attendance at a school you're applying to, your family needs a little help to be able to cover those costs. In many cases, you'll be working with the financial aid office, and I recommend reaching out to them early. Don't wait until the end of the process to ask questions about money. I know it can be a little uncomfortable sometimes talking about money and asking these questions, but it really is best if you are asking and learning even before admission decisions or even before an application for admission gets sent. In some cases, like Macalester, I actually am your contact as well for the financial aid side of things. But it's okay if you reach out to one person and they direct you to somebody else. You don't have to know exactly the right person. And so your best bet, if you don't know who to contact or the best person to ask questions about financial aid or about scholarships, contact the admissions person. Go to the admissions contact website, look to see if they have a regional person that's listed for international or for your country, and reach out to them. If there's not a specific person, reach out to their general admissions or international admissions email account, and they'll tell you who the best person is to talk about for applying for financial aid or about the scholarship opportunities.
I would just add, Sarah, that it is always helpful if you come into these conversations prepared. So definitely be sure to review the information that we already have on our usually financial aid or admissions websites. We try to provide as much detail as possible. And, you know, in email correspondence, you may not be able to get all of these details, but it's helpful to come to an email correspondence or a phone correspondence or in person with some specific questions about the policies or the opportunities that you have read about and done some research by reading the information on the website.
Great, thank you. Well, I am aware that we are at the hour, but I would like to end maybe with one question that I think will help wrap things up nicely. And I think I would like each and every one of you to answer this question and maybe insert your final words as well through this, and then we'll come to a close. So the question that we have from one of the students is, what do your individual colleges, especially as liberal arts colleges, look for in an applicant? So I know this is a very broad and general question, but if you would be able to just speak to it, and especially maybe in regards to one who would thrive in building strong relationships on your campus and how you see those traits appear in the application process.
I can start, and I think we'll just speak in more general terms that all of our colleges might look for, or think that are important traits for students to have to be able to thrive on our campus. So I think an important piece is we look for students who are open to the liberal arts, right? Who are open to exploring many different disciplines, and we like seeing students who are flexible, right, in their learning, who are creative in their learning as well. And that is really something that will help you thrive on one of our campuses as well. We have so much to offer in terms of academics. We want to know that students are excited about taking advantage of all these different offerings. So I think that's an important piece when it comes to kind of just intellectual curiosity, your flexibility when it comes to academics. And I think a second piece I will offer here is that we're also looking for very engaged community members, right? We're intentional about this community that we build, and we're fortunate that we're able to shape this very particular class of just a few hundred people, right? So we want to make sure that you want to engage with your fellow peers, with your professors, right, with different organizations on campus. We want to know that you will bring something to that campus, to that community, right? So we look for kind of ways that you interact with other people in your lives, whether that's with your family, with your peers at your school, or maybe your larger city, or even your country, right? So it's different. You can define your community in different ways, but we like to know that students are engaged with their community, that they're thinking about, people beyond themselves. So those are kind of some quick general things that I think all of us look for in applicants, but I'll pass it on to my next colleague to offer a little bit more.
I fully agree with you, Yukon. You did a great job of summarizing the main components of our holistic admissions processes. I would echo the engagement piece. If there's a quality that we really look for, it's engagement in the learning process as well as in community. And there are many different ways to demonstrate that, and it plays out differently for different applicants depending on their context and depending on their community. But it's that concept of engagement that we're trying to define as we read. And the context we mentioned a couple of times plays a huge role. So we review every applicant in the context of their own experience to try to figure out what engagement means in that context.
Yeah, absolutely. The engagement is important. And I think students always worry a little bit about, how, what's going to make me unique and what's going to make me stand out. And I always remind them that you might not necessarily think that you're unique, but everything you do makes up who you are, and that combination is unique to you. And we're not just looking for one type of student. We want diversity on our campus in all forms. So your involvements and your classes, you might not think are really that special, but they are special to you, and they make you who you are. And that's what we want to bring to our campus, is those unique combinations that each student brings. And there are different engagements in academics, and there are different engagements in extracurriculars, and there are different interests and things they might want to pursue on campus. So really, making sure that that's known in your application is so important. So taking advantage of maybe writing about it in your essay and putting it in your extracurricular list and really emphasizing what it is that you're passionate about or that you're interested in. And that's what makes you unique. And that's what we're going to look at the most.
Great, thank you. I think the only thing I'll add to all of the excellent advice that's already been shared is, especially when you are looking to apply to schools in the United States, and especially small residential liberal arts and sciences colleges, is even now thinking about the why of things. You know, yes, you'll have your list of your extracurricular activities, your academic information, and sometimes we find that students kind of take it very literal and are just reporting, I do this for this many hours a week and da 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 da. But what often we really want to also get at is, why do you enjoy doing these things? Why is psychology your favorite subject? Because again, that's going to help differentiate you, because there could be lots of students who are involved in Model United Nations or who are interested in biology or psychology, but your reason for why you are interested in that, that's unique to you. And so if you're able to highlight that in your application, either through written opportunities like essays or the supplements, or again, through those interview opportunities. I think that's one of the reasons why we, you know, if a student doesn't have the opportunity to interview with us or with an alum, we love seeing things like initial view interviews in the application, because it's another way for us to kind of watch you and listen to you talk about why you're interested in things and your interests in different books, and again, that helps us better get to know you and kind of unpack all of these other elements that my colleagues have talked about in terms of engagement and what you can bring to our campuses. So look for those opportunities, and again, just be yourself. We want to know who you are, not what you think we want you to be.
Thank you, everyone. That was really great. I think a very rich discussion about, in fact, a life skill that goes beyond college and something that will be applicable in every stage of life. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. Apologies that we weren't able to get to all of your questions, but do want to remind you that every institution here has a very robust social media platform on various channels. Their websites are just chock full of really useful information. And as we just learned today, with your questions, reach out to these admissions officers, contact them, start having a relationship with them, and it will surely benefit your application process and beyond. So thank you. 감사합니다. We'll see you next week. 다음 주에 뵙겠습니다. Bye.